This is the story of a boy who always wanted to live for himself and didn't like school education and its hectic rules and regulations. The story begins when a horse steps up and rides the boy, but he is lost in his thoughts. He refused to go to any place of learning ever again because he always hated the education system. His name is Li Han, and the man accompanying him calls his name and asks him to see toward a side. It seems like they have almost reached their destination. They are heading toward the Empire's best magic school, reincarnated. The knight assisting him, Rarlong, is very happy to assist him because he thought he was useless as an old knight. But when he gets the task to assist his young master, he gets to watch him grow up into a fine young man and enter reincarnated. But Li Han is lost in his thoughts. In the end, he is unable to break off his connection to school, even in his new life. In his past life, on graduation day, his friend came to him and congratulated him for graduating. They are now finally done being slaves, and he is happy that they survived under those professors. He remembers his graduation period when, most days, his professor came to him and asked him to start attending the facility hiking club every weekend. Still, he refused, saying he didn't think he was worthy of participating in such an honorable club. They often gave him a bundle of assignments and ordered him to finish by tonight, and he used to spend sleepless nights. They used to eat kimbap for weeks and were exhausted by this kind of food. His friend now appreciated him at their graduation ceremony and said he was especially amazing, and he replied that he just did as best as he could in his position. His friend smiles and says according to him, he is very suitable for this life and asks him to repeat grad school again, but he replies this would be going a bit too far. Li Han rudely replies that he doesn't care what it seems like, but that he just did his part. However, he refuses to be a part of any place of learning in his future life. He wants to live for himself and doesn't want to be in another place like graduate school. He is lost in his thoughts when a fast-driving bus appears on the road. The driver seems worried because the bus brakes are not working. He shouts at Li Han and asks him to move out of his way, but when he notices his arrival, it is too late. The bus strikes him, and both his education and degree end up being nothing but a useless piece of paper. He dies very unpredictably, but his resolution stays firm even after reincarnation. He reincarnated into a child named Li Han Wardenaz, but the weird thing is that he remembers everything about his past life. He was born as the third son of House Wardenaz, the leading magic house of the Empire. He still can't believe that he has reincarnated into another world as a noble, not to mention being the third son of a rich and powerful family. He is happy to know this and thinks he is being rewarded for attending grad school in his past life, and now this is his chance to take life easy. But at that point, he was surely mistaken. It is revealed that House Wardenaz has a few rules about their children, and rule 1 is that the first son inherits everything. At that point, Li Han wonders what will happen to them, the other son, and he is informed that excluding the first son, all other children have to figure out their own path in life. He was very young when he decided to learn swordsmanship, and the knight, Rarlong, was surprised when he personally asked him to teach him the sword. Li Han replies he is doing this because he thought it would come in handy, and most importantly, he has nothing better to do. Thankfully, the family provided support for anything they wanted to learn. Rarlong asks him if he wants to take this chance to walk the path of the sword, but Li Han makes his decision and declares that he wants to become a magician, which seems to be the most stable path for him. Rarlong is surprised when he talks about stability, and Li Han wonders if that is too unambitious of an answer. But he is surprised when Rarlong sits near him and says he is very touched by his cleverness. He tells him that the majority of noble children are delusional, but he is incredibly ambitious at a young age. He is happy that Li Han is already planning a reasonable future. Li Han thinks he is saying this because of his past life experience, and once a person experiences grad school, he can't help but become a realist. A skilled magician was always welcome, from the Order of Knights to the Adventurer Guild to even the Imperial family. To achieve this purpose, reincarnated was an institution that produced those talented people, and was known as the Empire's greatest magic academy. Li Han is once again ready to try and endure the study torture for a few years, and Rarlong encourages him, saying he is sure he will be fine. Even the Patriarch complimented his talent, but Li Han didn't believe this because the Patriarch didn't let him practice magic because it's dangerous for kids. But thanks to Rarlong's words, he agreed to this. After that, he informs him that from this point on, neither attendants nor horses are allowed, and he has to go alone to the academy. In the meantime, Lihan observes a carriage beside him, and the guards ask them to move aside since they are assisting the daughter of a duke. They try to open the gate, but the guards refuse and say the students have to go all alone. Lihan is surprised to see a large number of students there. He is surprised to see many guards along with a girl and wonders how they can enter when Einregard is a place they are supposed to enter alone. A boy beside him doesn't like this and worries about how he will survive without his servants. Lihan is surprised to see his reaction but has nothing to say to console him. The boy tries to persuade him, saying servants are like hands and feet to him, and they are simply asking them to cut their own hands and feet. He is also unhappy to know that they even accept slaves as students in the name of equality and states he will put in a complaint using his family name. He goes to a guard for his complaints but uses manipulation magic on him and repeatedly says he repents for his complaints. Lihan is shocked that the guards don't hesitate to use such magic, even to noble children. The rumors he heard about the academy aren't true since he heard that they treat the nobles well. He has also heard that the place is full of monsters, and they even bury the students in the mountains out back if they die. Suddenly, the gate opens, and a green aura covers the students, welcoming them into Einregard. They hear a voice in the surroundings, and it calls them stupid ironheads. Lihan is impressed at such tremendous magic pressure, and knows that this voice belongs to the rumored headmaster. He observes that everyone around him is frozen from the pressure. The headmaster seems angry and says he already told them to come alone. But he doesn't care if they don't abide by the rules. Because if they don't want to listen to him, then he will force them to follow them. With this, all the extra servants, carriages, and horses fly in the air, and the students stay there alone. The headmaster then calls the students, asks why they all are standing around like they are stupid, and asks them to enter the gate. All the students enter the academy and see a skeleton image of the headmaster. This is their first day at Einregard, the greatest magic academy in the empire, and all the students have very bad feelings about what is coming to them next. The students then start walking in the hallway and are unhappy when the headmaster calls the Ironheads. Meanwhile, a girl takes his name and calls him Lihan of the Wardeness. He turns toward her, and she introduces herself as Yoner Maken. Like the Wardeness house, the Maken house is also a house of magicians. Lihan greets her warmly and asks why she called him. She tells him that His Imperial Highness wishes to see him. The Imperial Prince waves toward him, and a famous rumor comes to his mind that Einregard is a place of development and socialization. All the students are already trying to build connections on their first day. Lihan wonders why Yoner Maken calls him his Imperial Prince when the Emperor has over 100 children. It is revealed that even in the Imperial family, only the firstborn was of interest. But the emperor doesn't support his children at all, and life is even worse for them. In places teeming with children of great houses, such as there, the imperial family is of lower standing than even Yoner's Maken house. He wonders why she is acting like this. She again asks him if he is coming with him, and he hears other students talking about Maken, wondering why she is helping some no-name prince. However, he shakes his hand with Maken and thinks it's better than making enemies. He exclaims that nothing bad can come about from making friends. She is happy that he agreed to her request and tells him he is the first to accept her request. Lihan is shocked by this and slaps his head anxiously, thinking he has messed up. The Imperial Prince, known as Gainando, is the 97th Imperial Prince. There is a talk that he can be the 101, but he strongly insists that he is 97th. It's clear that he didn't want to go into the hundreds. Lihan was observing his surroundings when Gainando called him and asked if he was listening to him. Lihan apologizes to him and asks what he just said, and he points toward a guy and abuses him, saying he denied his proposal. Lihan observes that he is really immature and says the boy must not know how regal of an existence he is. Gainando doesn't understand what he meant by regal, and Lihan concludes that he is not immature, but an immature idiot. He tells him regal, meaning that he is someone who is invaluable and of high and prestigious class. Gainando gets happy and says it's a word that suits him. However, he points toward other students who refused his proposal and are talking with Adenart now. It is revealed that Adenart is the 44th Imperial Princess, or somewhere around there. Lihan thinks she has the elegance that is expected of a member of the Imperial family, so, of course, people would follow her, unlike someone else. Gainando asks him if he will take care of Adnard for him later since he is tall and pretty well built. Lihan shuts him up, saying regal people don't harass other people, and when he talks about punishment, Lihan adds that regal people don't do that either. He then asks him what he should do now, and Lihan advises him to forgive them generously. But if he still wants to do that, then he can directly challenge them to a duel. Gainando gets scared of the duel name and says they don't need to go that far, and he will forgive them since he is a regal prince. Maken listens to their conversation, and then appreciates Lihan because he was able to curb his stubbornness when even she, his relative, couldn't do it. Lihan says he understands they are relatives, but he can't stop his curiosity and asks her why she is going this far to care for him. She was about to tell him the reason when the headmaster appeared there, and the green aura again surrounded them. He asked them if they were enjoying chatting. A boy talks loudly and says he is the same Lick they saw at the gate. The headmaster gets angry when he calls him a Lick and says he is an existence, which results from a great magician willingly becoming undead to overcome death. The boy is scared because he never expected the headmaster to be a Lick. The headmaster then asks them why he thinks he is calling him Ironheads. Adnard replies that it's because the symbol for this year's freshman class is steel. The headmaster liked her answer and gave 10 points to her dorm. Adnard asks him if there is a point system for dormitories, but he replies shockingly. The headmaster says if they want to become a magician, then they should first learn how to tell lies apart from the truth. He reveals that the symbol for this year's freshman class is steel. Steel is a material that changes depending on how it is crafted. It's a valuable material with a variety of uses. The headmaster states that it is genuinely material that suits the freshmen. The students get excited when the headmaster starts laughing and says they fall for it again. He makes fun of them and says the reason why their symbol is steel is because they are all idiots and have nothing in their heads. Lihan and the other students are shocked at this insult, and he thinks even though the headmaster is mocking them this much, no one can talk back to him. He observes that it's more than just difficult to move in a place this dense with magic energy, but he thinks it's a bit better now since he has gotten used to it. The headmaster calls the students and says he was being too harsh to all of them who have traveled a long way to get there. Meanwhile, he notices that Lihan is able to move in this density. He then calls all the students and asks them to look to the door on the left. A door opens in front of them, and on the other side of the door, there is a vast arrangement of food with long dining tables. The headmaster asks everyone to enjoy the feast and relieve themselves of the fatigue that builds up during their journeys. The students are happy to see the delicious food and sit on the chairs, hoping this won't be a joke this time. They have white bread smothered in thick slices of cheese and butter. Besides that, there is a well-fed chicken coated in oils, butter, spices, and flours, which has then boiled off in wine for a delicious chicken dish. Furthermore, a gratin is covered in bechamel sauce, and fresh fish is grilled over charcoal in the Eastern style. Gainando chooses fish for his meal and thanks the headmaster for the meal. But as soon as he puts his fork on the fish, the food disappears in front of them. The headmaster laughs loudly since they again fell for it. Lihan has heard that a man loses something when he becomes a Lick, and he is sure that the skeleton headmaster lost quite a few things. The headmaster then talks to them and says the academy is a birthplace for magicians, and the biggest impetus behind a developing magician is thirst. Suddenly, some pieces of bread and uniforms fly in the air and approach every student. The headmaster informs them about their uniforms and meal, which consists of only a piece of bread and some rice. Gainando is shocked to get this type of treatment and screams sadly, but the headmaster gets happy and says that's exactly the response he wanted from them. He asks them to learn magic and acquire delicious food for themselves, but he will only give them food that keeps them alive. He asks them if their uniforms and wands look like trash to them, so they need to use magic to acquire new clothes and wands. These are all the laws of the academy that they need to earn something to get it. He then hears a student talking about going outside to get these things in good quality. The headmaster listens to their conversation and says he also wants this response. He declares that freshmen are not allowed to go out and are not allowed to ask a senior either. After that, he wishes them good luck and hopes they become great magicians. With this, the introduction sessions are dismissed, and the headmaster leaves from there with his green aura. Lihan grabs his head out of disappointment and wonders if every single place has crazy professors like him. He is fully aware of those kinds of people. Before his reincarnation, the professor in the next laboratory had that same glint in his eyes as the headmaster. His eyes were filled with madness, and he remembers that madness clearly. Gainando comes to him and asks if he heard the professor, and how he dares to treat them like that. But Lihan is lost in his thoughts and thinks that the Lick headmaster is better than that professor. Gainando continues and asks him how they are supposed to live with such uniform and awful food. But Lihan talks to himself and thinks not only about food, but also about clothes, which means this place is definitely better than his past life. He thinks about the family he belongs to in this life, the House of Wardenez, that there is little known about them in noble society. It was because they only focused on studying magic and never participated in social activities. Due to that, misunderstandings about the house only grew. Gainando gets tired of talking to him and says not even his servants live with this kind of food and clothes. He then puts his hand on his shoulder and says he should visit his house when he gets the chance. Lihan thanked him for the offer and asked if they should head towards the dorm, too. It is said that Einregard accepted students regardless of their status, so long as they had talent. However, in order to prevent disputes among these sensitive teenagers, the dormitory was divided into 4 towers according to their status. The first one is called the Tower of the Arrogant Blue Dragon, and only the honorable lineage of the dragon may enter there. Renowned nobles such as the imperial family and Lihan go there. The second is called the Tower of the Eternally Burning Phoenix, and only those who have dedicated everything to the holy flame may enter there. It is a solemn and honest tower where only priests from various religious orders may go. The third one is called the Tower of the Lightning-Rending White Tiger, and only those with the foresight to strike down anything may enter. The bloodline from the House of Knights entered this tower, and these people were prepared to walk 2 paths, as a knight and a wizard. The last one is called the Tower of the Past and Future Seeing Black Turtle, and only those with endless patience may enter there. However, various people went there, such as civilians, servants, slaves, clowns, beggars, merchants, and emerging low-class nobles. Compared to the other dorms, they are easily ignored because of their low status. As such, the freshmen are mostly intimidated. However, there is always an exception. In Lihan's eyes, they were the perfect business partners. He stares at some students, and they wonder if he wants something from them or simply looks down on them. Meanwhile, Lihan has a thought that he should be friends with them since the best way to earn money is by doing business, and to be good at it is to get field experience. Suddenly, they all hear a boy humiliating them and ask his friend about why the academy has accepted such lowly people like them. All the students start looking at that boy, and he again questions them if he is wrong about their status. Lihan steps up, thinking about how they dare to mock his future business partners. He interrupts that boy and calls him a lowlife because they all set everything they had aside before coming in there. He asks him why he forgot what the headmaster said and shows such cockiness. All the other students like him, and they recognize him as being from House Wardenez, and his morals are as expected from a great house. The students who just humiliate the weak students are now getting embarrassed by getting such a reaction. Lihan smiles and observes that the whole atmosphere is nice now, and now he just needs to greet them. Suddenly, the same boy from before asks other students not to make eye contact with the Wardenez boy because they are dangerous people. He claims that Lihan belongs to the house where the patriarch is a dragon, and he also heard that they are the bloodline of an ancient spirit. Lihan is shocked at such a reaction, and he has never heard such rumors about his family. He calls Makin Yoner and asks if he looks scary, and she praises him, saying he shows dignity like a noble. Lihan didn't know of his family's notoriety at the time. Gainando calls them and asks if they can leave the imperial prince alone. They step toward him, and Lihan asks her if he can listen to the rest of what she is saying. Yoner reveals that the reason why she is letting him be childish is because of his mother. She tells him a story of the palace when she was very young and ran in an imperial banquet from here and there. She had a glass of juice in her hands and suddenly slipped, damaging the empress's dress. She got scared, and all the people around her thought the empress wouldn't forgive her. But she was shocked when Lady Empress picked her up in her arms and treated her affectionately. At present, Yoner tells him that the empress is very rich, and she gives him an allowance for being married to her son, Gainando. Lihan is surprised to hear about money and thinks if this is the case, then he should also be friends with him. After that, they visit the academy, which is so big. It is surely spelt academy, but a lake, forest, and mountains exist. Lihin thinks the headmaster wasn't kidding when he said to get it all on their own. He then hears some students talking about the Tower of the Blue Dragon. He calls Yoner and asks what they are talking about. She also seems confused and asks if their dormitory isn't over there. He asks her why everyone is looking toward the other side, but he also gets shocked toward the side other students are seeing already. They have an old, pathetic building in front of them. Gainando is again angry and says his servants' quarters are bigger than this, but they yet expect them to live in such a place. Lihin observes the surroundings and thinks it looks like a tight fit for this many people. However, they enter the tower, and Gainando keeps getting increasingly disappointed. As soon as they enter the tower, darkness is everywhere, and everyone around Lihin disappears. Suddenly, he hears a voice welcoming him and also calls him a small magician. Lihin is all alone in that dark place and now understands what is happening there. As expected of a magic academy, he concludes that the dorm is a magic tower. He asks the voice about where he should go, and the voice appreciates him since he adapts quickly. It tells him that he can only go to his personal room and the iron break room, which is exclusive to first years. Lihin asks the voice if there are other places he can go to in the future, and it agrees. He says some places only require him to know the name, while others require him to know something extra. But at that moment, he couldn't get further information because the headmaster prohibited it. He asks the voice to take him to his personal room, and the voice welcomes him to the academy and takes him to his room. He then finds a book about Einregard in his room and reads that, except for core subjects, the remaining classes can be freely picked. The students can decide their classes after trying them out for a month. He also reads a quote written by the headmaster, and his real name is written down, Osu Gonadalt. He closes the book and thinks it doesn't seem as strict as he was expecting, and this is much easier going than grad school. The room had almost everything he needed. At that moment, Lihin is the only one satisfied with his room, while the other students scream because they think nothing is there. Lihin reads the book and decides to attend the classes the others are signing up for. He goes to the break room and finds Yoner there. She tells him she wants to learn alchemy because she has always been interested in it. Her dream is to set up her own workshop and provide products to the imperial family. She asks Lihin to work with her, and he asks for some time to think about it since alchemy isn't an easy business. It is said that the empire's alchemy industry is highly competitive, and from spreading bad rumors about the competition to monopolizing potion ingredients, countless guides brawled over market share. Yoner then asks him about the subjects he is interested in, and Lihin thinks he wants to take less competitive subjects that are easy to get good grades in. His priority goal is to become an imperial officer and, in other words, a government worker. Regardless of the field of focus, the things that matter the most are grades and qualifications. He looks toward Yoner and thinks a passionate girl like her would feel let down if he said that. He then tells her that he is planning on deciding to try out various things over the next month because he doesn't want to rush important decisions. In the meantime, Gainando approaches them while crying and says there is a problem with him. He tells them that there is a thief in his room because the room is completely empty. Yoner and Lihin are shocked at his statement because the room was empty by the academy. The next day, they join their first class, Basic Magic Comprehension, which is a core subject for the first year, and the lecture times are different for every dorm. He closes the schedule book and wonders what is happening with everyone around him. Yoner tells him that they are hungry, and their beds are so uncomfortable that they don't sleep well. Lihin didn't face this kind of problem and wondered if it was really this hard for them. He compares this life to his past life when he asked a senior about meal times since there wasn't any time for meals. The boy gave him a protein bar and said it was his ration for the day. When he stared at him, he hid his face and said he had to eat the same thing. He made sure that a feast was waiting for him when he finished his degree. He had to spend his weeks eating ramen and triangle combat. At present, he smiles and thinks this life is definitely better than his past life. After some time, they head toward the lecture hall and are happy that it's on the first floor. But they get shocked to see inside and rush back outside and fall to the ground. They stated that they were sure that this was their lecture hall, but inside, there was a troll waiting for them. It is revealed that trolls are ferocious and dangerous monsters that are infamous to even the most sheltered nobles. The students are shocked to see a troll in their lecture hall who is wearing proper clothing. She can speak, and also welcomes the students and asks them to take a seat. All the students sit in their respective seats. The troll introduces herself as Garcia Kim and says that she is a half-troll. She also understands that they are scared of her, but says they don't need to be afraid because she doesn't eat people. But she licks her lips and says she won't eat them unless she gets very hungry. Lihen and Ganando are scared of just thinking that she will eat them if she is hungry. Garcia observes their expressions and says it is a joke, and she regrets it already. However, she starts the first lecture and predicts that the majority of the students wouldn't have ever used magic before. That's because magic is extremely dangerous, and as such, only adults are permitted to use magic. Garcia looks toward the students and states all of them are magician seeds who have received the title of Steel. This lecture aims to teach them what magic is and also to help them find which kinds of magic they have an aptitude for. She tells them that the magician's path is a rough and rigorous journey, and she wishes to become their compass. The students seem to like her and think the professors aren't like the headmaster, which is a relief. Garcia asks them to start with the basics, and she will tell them about what the magic actually is. Adnart raises her hand and answers that it's the undertaking of a magician to change the world with their will. Garcia likes her answer but adds something from her side. She states that it's using magic energy, mana, as the fundamental force to change the world. Those who have enrolled in this academy are talented enough to feel and recognize this magic energy. However, to use magic, they have to go beyond that. They have to call magic energy with their own will and delicately weave it together, and only then will magic be cast. She tells them a common belief that magic requires a chant or emotion to cast it. But the more important thing is their will. She advises the students not to forget these instructions and later on realizes that she went on for quite a while. She then asks everyone to stand up so that they can try this on by themselves and have a better understanding. She asks them to take out their wands and gather magic energy, and Lihen takes out his wand, thinking they are finally using magic. Garcia also swings her wand and says that while maintaining that magic energy, she wants them all to create an image of light in their heads. Yoner follows her instructions and thinks it's quite hard to control magic energy. She feels like pulling on the reins of a wildly charging horse, and if she loses her concentration for even a second, it will disperse. Garcia smiles and says while they all concentrate on preventing the magic energy from dispersing, she will chant her spell. She creates a bright yellow light with her wand and tells the students that their chant can be whatever comes to their head. But they just need to keep in mind that a short chant might be easier for keeping focus. Lihen makes a list of steps in his mind. The first step being to gather magic energy, the second being to transform magic energy with their will, and the last one being to chant a spell. After that, Garcia throws her light toward all the students, and they have to control it without panicking. Some students can't control it, and they leave their wands out of hand. Gainando is also worried because her wand is moving on its own. Garcia notices his condition and uses her magic to save him. He gets up disappointedly, and she tells the students that if they finally control it, then the magic can go wild and hurt someone. Although, she asks them to practice in peace since it's the professor's role to stop something bad from happening. She encourages Gainando and asks him to try it again if he is left with some magic energy. Gainando does it for the second time, but it still doesn't work, and he bows his head disappointedly. At the end of the class, 1 out of 3 students gave up, and 2 out of 3 students remained. Garcia thinks Luminate might be the simplest spell, but it normally takes over a month of practice to learn it. However, she won't tell the students because it's something that they must overcome themselves. After that, the result of the third attempt was 50-50, and in the fourth attempt, the majority of the students gave up, and only 3 students remained. The practice continued, and in the 5th attempt, only 1 student remained. On the 6th attempt, there is also 1 student remaining. After that, Lihen gets up and asks Garcia if it is necessary for him to continue because it seems like he is the only one left. Garcia observes him and thinks they are only at the 7th attempt, and even a freshman has a lot of magic energy. They should normally hit their limit on the 5th attempt. Let's go towards some basic knowledge about magic energy. And it is heard that in the East, a certain tribe calls it Kai. A scholar who likes to show off might call it Etha, and some stubborn priests call it divine energy. However, a power with a variety of names was the source of a magician's strength. As they had to use the magic energy within, they each time cast a spell. It was a matter, of course, that young, novice magicians often faced magic energy deficiency. But Garcia is surprised that Lihan's complexion is fine despite it being the 7th attempt. She asks him for his name, and when he tells her his name, she is impressed because he said his name first, not his house's, earned favor from the professor who saw a student put equality in action. She smiles and asks him to step forward for a second. She then asks him to give her his hand, and Lihan puts his hand on her hand. But as soon as she touches her hands, she finds herself in the sea of mana. She gets into consciousness when Lihan again calls her and asks if there is an issue with him. She holds herself and smiles, saying there is no issue and asking him to continue the class. Meanwhile, Gainando asks Yoner to save Lihan. Otherwise, the professor will attack him. Garcia asks him to come and see her for a second after the lecture is over. She then talks with the students and says it's easy for them to run out of magic energy, but they don't need to get impatient because of it. As they practice, their amount of magic energy will increase, and they will use less each time. She shares some past experiences of students, such as students with a lot of motivations losing control while practicing and getting hurt, so they need to be careful about this. She calls Gainando and says she doesn't eat students, and he apologizes to her since she heard what he said to Yoner earlier. She then ended the first lecture and thanked the students for the class. After that, Lihan goes to see her in the office and asks why she has called him out separately like this. She tells him that she heard about him prior to their lecture from the headmaster, and Lihan is shocked that Psycho Lick noticed him. She observes Lihan's expressions and asks him not to get worried, and says the headmaster may seem like he has a few screws loose, but he is a kind person. The students aren't aware of the fact, but the headmaster has a sharp eye for people. Every year, he gives the professors an explanation of the new students. The previous day, the headmaster asked all the teachers to be careful of that beastman because he was more than capable of burning down the dorm multiple times over. He also referred a girl who is a half-demon and asked them to be careful with holy magic near her. The thing he said about Lihan was that he had the qualities of a massive fool. Garcia is surprised at his comment and thinks about a saying in the East that a massive fool can also be a massive genius. Garcia now looks at Lihan and wonders if the headmaster wants to say that he sees the qualities of someone who will greatly succeed. But after observing him, she now has great expectations from Lihan Wardenaz. She comes out of her thoughts when Lihan calls her and thinks she can't tell him about this at all. She reveals the reason for calling him. There is because he has too much magic energy. Lihan is glad to know this, but wonders if this is something she needs to see him privately about. Garcia then adds that he doesn't have just a little more, but he can't even fathom its limits. She reveals that the amount of magic energy they have is one of a magician's determining factors. If someone lacks magic energy, they need to use convoluted methods to draw out more magic energy, so having a lot of magic energy means they are free of such restrictions. In other words, it signifies Lihan's great talent. He is happy to hear this and thinks that if what the professor is saying is true, then there is nothing but a rosy path ahead of him. However, he is shocked when Garcia says it's a shame for him. He asks her what she meant by this and if this isn't good enough to have a lot of magic energy. Garcia says this might be true, but he has too much energy. She picks up a glass of water and compares magic energy to the water in this cup, and this small amount is easy to control. However, Lihan has to control an amount as large as the sea, and that would be difficult to control. Lihan understands what she is saying now, that the difficulty of controlling magic energy and the core principle behind magic are at an unreasonably high level. Lihan sits on the ground anxiously and grabs his head with both hands. Garcia then gives him a bracelet and asks him to wear it all the time. Garcia tells him that it's a bracelet that absorbs magic energy and that it should help him out for now. Lihan asks her if there's no problem as long as she has this and thanks her for this generosity. But he is again shocked when she says there was no need to call him if it was such a simple problem. She tells him that the bracelet will help a bit if he uses a lot of spells to deplete his magic energy. He is allowed to practice on his own since there won't be any accidents due to mage energy depletion. He then comes outside, and now his future looks bleak to him. He thinks he will have to make sure to keep his grades up starting now. He asks Yoner and Gainando if they have any classes they are considering taking, and Yoner replies that she will take alchemy. She asks them if they want to join her, but Lihan is surprised when Gainando comments that alchemy is meant for servants. Yoner clenches her fists out of anger and asks Lihan to step aside for a minute. She moves him away and then punches Gainando, hardly warning him not to ask for a potion again when he ends up in the hospital. Lihan was scared at her angry expression, and at that moment, he knew a thing or two about fighting thanks to a sword lesson from Ulrar Long, and in his eyes, that was a 10 by 10 punch. He thumbs up for Yoner while Gainando falls to the ground badly. After that, they head toward their basic alchemy comprehension class, and Lihan asks her if it is okay to hit Gainando that badly. Her expression seems serious, and she straightforwardly replies it's fine as long as she apologizes to him tomorrow. Lihan predicts it must not have been the first time she's hit him. They find a lot of students from the other towers, and there are especially a lot of students from the Black Turtle Tower. He doesn't really care that they are here, but their gazes bother him. Lihan is at the point that peasants normally have two kinds of reactions when encountering a noble. They either fear them because they don't want to get entangled with them or show hostility. A girl whispers in a boy's ear and forbids him to stop staring at Wardenaz, but the boy remains stubborn and says even the Wardenaz house can't do anything inside the academy. Lihan continues to walk and thinks if he acts over-friendly, then it might just backfire. After a while, an old man appears behind the students, and Lihan wonders if he is the new professor there. With a lick headmaster and a half-troll professor, it wouldn't be strange to see some other bizarre professor. However, they are surprised that their new professor is just a normal dwarf. The introduction starts with his name, Yurgulm Jumdar, and he asks them to just call him Professor Yurgulm. He points toward a huge building in front of them, but they are gathered in a field without a single desk. Adnart raises her hand and says they have gathered there to feel nature's mana, and understanding what powers exist in nature is important for alchemists. But she is surprised when the professor says this is not the reason they have gathered there. Yoner asks Lihan if he knows anything, and he assumes it's maybe because it's a good place to gather materials. The professor immediately turns toward him and says he is correct. He praises Lihan for being quite the smart ironhead, while Adnart gets jealous of him. Lihan thinks his shot in the dark was the correct answer and hopes that Adnart doesn't feel a rivalry towards him over this. Professor Yurgulm asks everyone for attention and reveals that the reason why they have gathered there is so he can teach them the most vital requirement for alchemy. He is sure that the students thought the thing required for alchemy was exceptional intelligence and precise magic control, but that is far from reality. Yoner makes notes about the lectures, and the professor reveals that the most important ability for alchemists is material collection. Adnart again raised her hand and said they could easily cultivate the materials by themselves or request it from others. She is at the point that saying the most important skill is gathering materials is weird. The students behind her also agree with her and wonder why they should acquire the materials. Professor Yurgulm gets angry and shouts at them by calling them ironheads, saying they don't know anything about the real world. He claims that they can't even cultivate 10% of the materials they need by themselves, and the ones they purchase are all unusable. He states that the reason they travel with adventurers is that they are bad at digging up herbs, and they destroy almost 50% of the valuable herbs when they dig them. The students are just quietly listening to him, and the professor adds that alchemists should know how to acquire their own materials, and if they can't acquire them, then they can't become great alchemists. He gives them enough explanation and says they are now going to an actual practice. A picture appears in front of every student, and it has weird material in it. The professor assigns them a task to bring him this material. It is said that Einregard, with all of its prestige, also had plenty of unsavory rumors, and one of those rumors was that people died while learning magic. They have been assigned to find a corrupted grass that is used when making antidotes, and Lihan asks Yoner if she has worked with it before. She replied that she had used it before enrolling in the academy. Lihan seems worried and thinks magic is dangerous and that accidents can happen. He wonders why the professors are sending them off to a place like this. They think it will be dangerous for just the two of them and think of adding one more person to their group. Lihan thinks of Adnart and asks if they should ask her Imperial Highness, but Yoner says she is a strict princess and she finds her very difficult. Lihan replies they don't care about this when they are only looking for herbs, but it seems like they are already late since it looks like she's finished forming her team. Lihan is sad because she avoids him and groups with the people of the Tower of the Black Turtle. Yoner replies this is because her Imperial Highness was famous even before she enrolled. She is famous even amongst the other members of the imperial family for her remarkable intelligence and talent, and she is a star power that the public loves. Because of that, people follow her regardless of status. Lihen asks her if Gainando has made the group, and she replies he is alone and resting in his room quietly. Lihen observes the surroundings and concludes that those who have already formed teams have left, and now only students from the Black Turtle Tower remain. He doesn't care if they hate him, but it's just way too dangerous if it's the two of them, and they need someone who has the ability to cover their weak points. Lihen looks here and there, and then finds a girl on the other side. He is sure that he will make a group with her. She is known as Nilia of the Tower of the Black Turtle. She is a dark elf and a member of the Shadow Patrol, a patrol force in the northern parts of the Empire. It is said that the Shadow Patrol is a group of skilled hunters and scouts who are active in the northern mountain range and know the mountain range like the back of their hands. She also looks at the picture and says it's not hard at all. It's her first time hearing about corrupted grass, but it won't be hard to find. The forest was like a playground to her, and she was surprised because there were a lot of skilled freshmen, but in this task, she would surely have the upper hand. Meanwhile, Yoner and Lihen approach her and introduce themselves from the house of Macon and Wardenaz. She asks them what they want from her, and Yoner asks her to traverse the mountains with them. She gets suspicious of them and asks what their real plan is. She clenches her fists out of anger and thinks all nobles are the same. They insult people like them by calling them slaves, and even if they show them the best hospitality, they complain that they treat them badly. Lihen comes up and says it's dangerous to go around alone and asks her what she will do if a monster comes out. She acts rudely and says she doesn't want their help. She is surprised when Lihen says she doesn't think they will use her as bait if they throw her away. She gets embarrassed and says she just wants to go by herself, but Lihen insists and says it's dangerous to go alone in the forest. He warns her about the trolls they might face in the forest, and that not only she doesn't know what will happen in the forest, but she also has to collect the materials and transport it. They make her scared and say she isn't an idiot who thinks she can do it by herself. Their plan works when she turns her face and agrees to accompany them. Wardenaz smiles and says he already knows that she is smart, while Yoner is surprised at his manipulating skills and wonders what they teach in the House Wardenaz. After that, they start their search, and Nilia jumps from tree to tree and helps them with the directions. Yoner really likes her hunting skills and asks Lihen how he noticed them. He replies that her leg and calf muscles were well developed, and she had calluses on her plan, which means that she uses a bow often, and it's evidence that could only be found in experienced hunters. Nilia listens to his comments and wonders if he is able to know about her with just those clues. She stares at Lihen and thinks he has a strange air about him, and it's not normal for him to be able to read straight through a person. But Lihen changes the topic and says it was just a joke, and he chose Nilia because she had a Shadow Patrol insignia on her waist. He asks Nilia if she is listening to him, but she refuses and says she isn't. Yoner asks her to match her pace with them and move on together. Nilia refuses to go along with them, but Lihen reveals that the only one who can differentiate herbs there is Yoner, and if she collapses, then the two of them will have to do it. Nilia asks him what his role is in this task since she is a guide, and Yoner can find the herbs, but he can't do anything. Lihen thinks she will get mad if he says he is taking a free ride, so he exclaims that his role is to protect the two. She then observes him and comments that he is pretty well built, which means he is probably from a house of knights, and asks her why he is in the Blue Tower. Lihen replies that he is not from a house of knights, but from House Wardenaz. Nilia is shocked to hear that he is from House Wardenaz, and Lihen is more shocked by her expression. She seems scared of him, and Lihen asks Yoner if something is wrong with his house. She replies that most noble houses have false rumors attached to them, but Wardenaz's house tends to be an extreme case. She tells him about the rumor of House Wardenaz that their head is a dragon. During the Undead Frenzy incident, he used his breath to burn all the undead to a crisp, and the Wardanza bloodline made a pact with an ancient spirit. Because of that, they received incredible magical abilities at the cost of losing their emotions, and the Wardenaz have no mercy. Furthermore, the Wardenaz magicians, who showed up to quell riots, made a city disappear. Lihen is surprised at this scary rumor and wonders if it is roughly the image of if something happens, they become monsters who sweep everything away. He asks Yoner if the magicians have no choice but to show up when a big incident happens. She understands this and asks him not to give it too much thought. Nelia observes Lihen and thinks she doesn't know anything else, but the rumor about them losing their emotions definitely seems fake. After that, they continue their journey, and Nili jumps through trees to trees and tells them directions. Suddenly, she notices something and jumps to the ground, asking them to stop. She shows them some big footsteps of an animal, and it seems like it just passed through it. Since the prints are so shallow, Nilia thinks it was controlling its strength in order to hide its tracks. She seems very interested in seeing the being that just passed through, but she observes that Yoner isn't interested at all. She gets sad and thinks no one other than the villagers is interested in things like this. But she is surprised when Lihen shows interest and asks if she can learn anything else from these tracks. Nilia is surprised and asks if this is interesting to him. He says he is from a great house. According to him, this should be wild. However, she gets up and asks them to be careful when they discover these footprints. Not only does it have large claws, but it will also be difficult to predict what sort of creature this guy is in there. She heard that all sorts of monsters roam about there in the Magic Academy, and Yoner agreed with her since she also heard this kind of rumor. It is said that Einregard is a land that's rich in magic energy, so it affects the land, and many different types of monsters show up. There are also monsters created from experiments and monsters formed from thrown-away potions, such as oddly shaped slimes. Lihen seems scared and thinks it's definitely a lack of safety awareness, and Nilia calls them and says they will change their plans and move as they follow these tracks. This way, they would be less likely to suffer an ambush. Lihen asks her if he can also learn how to read tracks, but she says it won't be easy, and he will probably give up later on. But Lihen promised her to do his best as long as she teaches him. She smiles and says she will see him try it then. After a long walk, they finally find the required plant, the corrupted grass, but it's unfortunate that they only found 2. They hope they find rest quickly, and Yoner asks them to keep moving since they can't see each other in their surroundings. She turns backward since Nilia and Lihen seem quiet and don't say anything. But she is shocked to see a considerable boar monster in front of them. Lihen can feel its magic energy, which means it's no ordinary boar, and Nilia asks them to be careful because this is basically a monster. The monster is ready to attack him, and Lihen is worried because they don't have any weapons along with them, so it's getting dangerous. He takes out his wand saying he should use it. The size of a magic stick can change to fit the user's wish, so it's easy to carry it around. He turns the staff into a stick and is ready to attack him. Nilia is surprised at his cleverness and thinks he really belongs to a house of magicians. The Empire's great house of archmages, the Warden's house, and Nilia think Lihen may have learned a few spells before enrolling. She asks him if he is confident enough to face that boar and asks him to grab Yoner and run if he fails, and she will act as a distraction and lead it away. Yoner and Lihen are impressed by her since she was thinking about them so much, but the fact is that she is the only one who can do it. Lihen is ready to attack the boar and asks them to take care of him on the off chance everything goes horribly wrong. Nilia wonders what kind of magic he will be used to defeat that boar. He grabs the staff tightly, and this takes him back to the past when he was around 10 years old. The knight told him that the sword may be the king of all weapons, but he must not rely on it alone. He asked him to learn to wield a variety of weapons so that he could be prepared for any situation. Only those who achieve understanding during this process learn to infuse mana into their weapons, which is called the state of aura. However, Alrarlong was sad to think Lihen would be disappointed once he knew the truth, because only a small portion of gifted people could reach that state. Lihen was exhausted, wondering if he had to go that far for aura, so he decided to become a magician and live in the office. He told Alrarlong that there is meaning to training the self to project his own body, and at that moment, he thought that his young master was different from those other nobles who chase after impossible dreams. He promised himself to teach him about aura no matter what and asked him to do another 100 stabbing motions.
Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.